We have that degraded wash really helps to communicate that atmosphere as well. Sort of a heavy atmosphere as buildings rise, they disappear almost like a fog. Okay, we're getting into some brush strokes now. All right, well, we're going to lay out our drawing here. You can see a ghost of the drawing that I struggled with, but I'm going to show you how I put it together. First line is where the street meets the buildings. This is not the horizon, really. It's ground level. We're looking up a little bit, seeing the train. These are some tracks, and they also lead in to our tram. And this is the other side of the tracks leading in to our scene. And then they go back around. Curb coming down. We have some interesting texture here. This is cobblestone. We might account for that, we might not. Let's set the buildings. Well, let's put the train on the tracks first. So basically a square shape. Square shape of our train. Window. Has a little decorative color here. These darks will be headlights. Maybe a bit of a reflection here, or yes, reflection, because the surface of the cobblestones is very shiny, highly reflective. The rain has just come through. We have some figures with umbrellas. We have a pylon, or actually a decorative pylon with a street light, typical of Prague. Where wires connect and so on. We have the tram structure. We don't have to, I'm not going to draw that too much, maybe more than I usually do, but so you can get an idea. This is the back of the train. Back here, another figure to give it, a scale. The line for our heads is right about here. Everybody's going to be sort of at eye level. We're going to have figures at various positions, as we usually do, coming through the scene. Casting reflections also, straight down with our reflections. We have a building on the left side here. These are lines of perspective on that building. Some more figures. A few more distant figures back here. Reflections of these figures, reflections of this building. This is a boutique, basically, but so there's a sort of arcade there. There's an arcade to this building back here as well. All right, some rooftops. Building coming in from this way. This is sort of the most interesting or descriptive part, which is these onion domed turrets. There's a little rise to this one. I'm going to draw it sort of darkly, and then I'll lighten the lines before I start painting. On a line, on a slant, so that we get that feeling of perspective. Not important lines. This is a roof line here. Another little tower here. Then a kind of interesting shaped building back here as well. So we've got some profile of buildings. Got plenty of material. It's a busy square. And I think that's enough. If we wish to put windows, we can create some lines to build them on. Lines of perspective. So notice these lines. When they're high, they're descending at a steeper slant. As they come lower, a more gradual slant, until they're right about here where our heads line up, which is our eye level. And then it's going to be a straight line across. This building is going a different direction. Same principle applies. These lines go down, down, less down. This one rises because it's slightly below our line of sight. So this line is rising. And the presumed point that these lines meet at is called a vanishing point. This is painter's perspective. I'm not going to go into great detail because my painting today is about the rain, and that's really what I'm hoping to show today, is a feeling of passing rain. And to do that, I want to show these buildings with just as silhouettes, basically. I do want to show you something new, or practice something new, which are the cables that slice overhead, going right overhead. We don't need to draw those unless we need some sort of reference here, but anyway, look at all those lines. It's way too busy to begin. I'm going to take an eraser and lighten some of the lines. I'm using a kneaded eraser, which is very soft and does not harm the paper. And I can rub lines out. I can also just lift in this manner, which is even more gentle. Especially up here, I want to see those lines just barely, you know. I'm going to be defining these shapes with a wash, and so I don't want to see them too much. So all that is going to be under a lighter wash. And what's the strategy here? The strategy is to paint a rainy day. I'm not going to paint the sky. I'm going to use just the white of the paper. That means my building behind is going to be rather light at the top, getting darker as it comes down. Light towards this back corner, getting darker as it comes toward us. And then count on darks in the trains and in reflections and in figures to create that feeling of a kind of passing rain. Figures will be sort of silhouetted, long reflections in the wet pavement, some broken edges up above, all to create this sort of wet atmosphere that we emulated in our study. So I think we're good to go. I'll be able to see most of these lines. Some won't even matter, really. All that work, and then it's just washed away. That's the goal, anyway. Let's see how close we come to that goal. All right. And I'm starting off with the brush full of color. Then I'm loading it up with more water. More water here. More water. I'm carrying this a little higher. Okay, gotta be a little careful. Let's keep it nice and wet. And I'm going to be watching that bead as I move across the paper. Switching to a smaller brush. Again, I want to keep it sort of light and cool. Let's pick up some of that. Keep it nice and wet. Don't want to keep manipulating that. I'm going to break a edge with a little water here. And we create this guy. All right. And we keep this going. And I'm going to carry some color. Let's go over here. That keeps wanting to travel down, so we'll carry it across. Some color, a little richer color through here, up through here. Trying to manage this all at once, not easy, but possible. Little stuff on the chimneys. It's like triage. See if we can do something about that. All right, we're going to bring it right down into our lower section. Keep it wet. This fine mist. Even breaking some of the edges with that mister. And watching what happens. See how the edge kind of dissolves up here. That's what I was hoping for. Get a little bit of sensation of light kind of breaking through here, or moisture, or whatever. And we keep going. A little more color, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, mix it in with our leftovers. Come down here. I'm going to go into the train as well. And create this, leave a little white edge, of course, for the train. And build that up all the way to the ground level. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, mixed into the leftovers. Oops. Like so. Just want to get a nice firm edge there. And let's build this building here. Come on down. Come on down. This building on the right side. We're compartmentalizing a little bit. Come on, let's create some wildness here. Go perhaps a little warmer in this one, just a little more burnt sienna. Let's use a smaller brush. A little darker towards the bottom. Okay. It's a little wet here. Let's bring in some color. Now, let's go to, let's work on this front piece a little bit. Through here. I'm going to leave the windshield white for the moment. A little redder. A little bit of drawing here. And let's create some reflections from the tram anyway, using a small brush. Let's add a little more red while it's wet there. And then let's go a little darker. The small brush right under here. And Carry this forward all the way down. This is that reflection. We're going to darken up the foreground just a little bit. Reflection from this building. Let's join these two. A little more ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Like this, yes, okay. I think so. I'm going to add a little water to the top of this here. Provoke the watercolor a little bit. Let that color bleed down. That's what I'd like it to do anyway. Okay, come on. And let's add a couple important figures. Train tracks. We could also do that with water. Okay. Let's add the figures. small brush, we're going to add relatively dry back here. But small figures back here. Okay. How about some figures a little closer? Maybe coming through. A little bigger brush. And a little darker. Even small figures, they need proportion. At about the same level. Let's move on. A little damp there still. I'm going to paint the reflections. smaller, but kind of moving, animated. Then we'll put a couple figures closer. Using some of that red, burnt sienna. With a little blue. Maybe a red umbrella. I want it to take over the painting, but oops. Yeah, we'll add some of that later. Just a little dry brush across this, tone it down a little bit. Let's put the dark windshield into the train. I think the light does not quite work. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, a little thicker. Okay, we're going to use her somewhat. Red umbrella there. Make it feel more like rain. Okay, let's go to the train track through here. Okay. Let's do the, start to think about any more color that we want to add. Before we step away. Let's think about the wires. Is it too dry back here? Let's work on the left-hand side. It's very bumpy. Let it dry a little more. But we can get started with some of this anyway. More water back here. I'm going to work on the building over here while this dries. Where did I put that brush? Right. some windows. Well, let's make some lines here. I can see sort of where these go. This is more up here. Still use the same two colors, just get a little darker, a little thicker as it comes forward. This is coming right out here. Try to make this ergonomic as possible. Coming right off the picture, pushing all of that city back. I think that's okay. Let's try something back here, a little more blue. Come on, pick up some paint. Let's go in front of it. And we can paint the reflection too. Paint one in the distance. Every city has sort of a unique public lighting. Okay, starting to feel finished. I'm not going to put any windows back there. I'm going to strengthen a couple of these figures. I think this one could be a little stronger. Let's soften the top of this. I'm wondering about the little bright red on the tram. Let's put a suggestion and see what it looks like. Nice, nice. Maybe just one more red. And where else? Red. Not sure what this red is. It's a little heavy. The red, which is exactly that subway color. It's not the best for the umbrella. Definitely good for the tram. Let's add a few colors to our figures to give them a little more believability. Such as, we can just take whatever we have on our palette, maybe some of this yellow ochre or cobalt turquoise. When we paint these colors onto a dark area, they give a bit of color, but it's not very luminous. It's more of a suggestion of color. And you feel the color, but it's really not jumping out at you. Come on, Gary. Bend it. That's better. Right. more blue, perhaps. This figure. This figure is too close to the periphery to do much with. So we'll keep it more with those figures, kind of group them together. That's not necessary. Erase that. Blend it in. Okay, and let's add a couple whites. We've got a lot of the white in the sky, but it really doesn't, it shows the profile of our city, not much more than that. Can use a little bright green here on the shoulder, on the tip of her poncho. You can use a little bright yellow on this guy as well. Little accents. Make it feel like the rain's bouncing off their shoulders. All right. A little more of this here. A couple dots for the lights and finger. And finger. Like that. Really make it feel like it's coming towards you. Maybe hitting a piece of the track. Like that. Okay. Basically good. Even these tiny people back here can have a little highlight. And I'm going to put in a few pavers down here. I don't have to do that everywhere, but they do describe one of the more sensitive parts of Prague, which is the way they take care of their city streets. Everything has some element of design to it there. We don't have to do this throughout. Maybe a couple through here because we want to make these reflections feel darker. I'm sorry, transparent. You can experiment. I'm probably going to sign it right over these two. So let's make that corner receptive. Just kind of blur it here. It's ready for our signature. All right, I pronounced this one finito. All right, so we want to do a little bit of a, so we want to add a signature here. I want to put maybe a detail or two. That would work. A detail where? What do we want to do? Maybe a little of that cobblestone. Nah, let's just sign this thing using a red. Not just the super bright version of this red, but a little darker. We could sign here, but this is kind of attractive looking up here. This is nice and flat through here. I think that'll be a good place to sign it. A little more paint. Don't want it to fade too much. Great. Sloppy. Good enough. This is what I don't like have to do. And let's peel off the tape. Okay, not too bad. Did this say to you, Prague in the rain? Tram in the rain? Train in Prague? Okay, I think it's good enough. Compare it to the tonal study up and to the right. We pushed the train in a little bit, but basically we followed those same shape patterns. We tried to dissolve the wash in certain places with the anticipation of placing these wires snaking through the upper section of the painting. Lots of figures lower down, reflections of these figures, buildings. All in all, we followed our tonal study pretty closely. And we made a few adds. We added a pylon and a nice repeat of that towards the back. The cobblestones take a little more of a precedence in the lower right-hand corner. Okay, I think we move on.